Liberals. 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 Man, frig these guys. Always doing the most annoying and useless stuff. What the frig is this?
I'm a donor to a GoFundMe. What's your name?
My name is Peter Dennis.
And why'd you donate to the Impeachment Cake Fund?
I just thought this was a delicious idea. I mean, let them eat cake. You know, this is just beautiful. This is democracy in action.
I love it. Thank you so much, and thank you for donating.
Why are you doing that? The world is on fire. You're making cakes to give to the oligarchs that are against the already useless thing that you want? You're not going to give the cakes to the oligarchs that you like? You're giving them to the ones that you don't like? The ones that are going to... It's so easy to be mad at them. They're so frustrating. How is it possible to be so pleased with yourself when your protest is just to make cake for your millionaire enemies? Oh, thanks, sir. I couldn't afford a $10 sheet cake. That's going to make me reconsider whether that one war criminal is allowed to testify against that other war criminal. The goals and methods of liberals are clearly counter to those of us on the left. They don't want to destroy capitalism. They want to reform it. They don't believe in direct action. They believe in appealing to the state, and in some cases, capital directly, to fix problems on their behalf. You don't go out and feed the homeless. That's a band-aid solution. That's not going to fix anything. You urge City Council to set aside some funds to create an exploratory committee to make a scientific and evidence-based solution to homelessness without addressing its root cause of poverty so that policymakers can ignore your suggestions and nothing changes, but you did waste a lot of time and money and energy. That's how you get things done, kids. But are liberals the enemy of the left? I do not think that they are. Now let me be very, very transparent about one thing though. Liberalism is absolutely an enemy of the left. Liberalism is not a person, it's a philosophy. That's the thing that sucks. I don't think that the people who believe it, at least not all of them, are our enemies. The majority of them are part of the working class that we hope to liberate. This might seem like a pointless distinction. Stick with me. There's a confusing logic that a lot of leftists seem to hold. Sorry, you know what? That's a little too vague. I should say a lot of leftists who exclusively exist on Twitter seem to hold. You know exactly the type of asshole I'm talking about. People with usernames like MockNoTits, whose avatar is some Nazi meme they've MS painted to have the YPG flag in the background. Weirdos who base the majority of their political outlook on a mod they installed in Hearts of Iron 4. That type of person. According to these extremely online left lords, the bourgeois state and capital spend an enormous amount of resources to brainwash people into accepting capitalism, imperialism, and white settler colonialism, silencing or criminalizing any voices that present an alternative. But also, anyone who doesn't innately recognize the evils of those systems is bad and a deficient person. Now, I agree with the first part, obviously. I've discussed in the past how liberalism limits people's imagination to the narrow confines of what capital decides are the allowable political positions. Sherlock Gnomes Chomsky did it way better than me, and has been doing it for a long time. Take it away, Chompo!
We can, to start with, there are two different groups. We can get into more detail, but at the first level of approximation, there's two targets for propaganda. One is what's sometimes called the political class. There's maybe 20% of the population, which is relatively educated, more or less articulate. They play some kind of role in decision-making. They're supposed to sort of participate in social life, either as managers or cultural managers, like, say, teachers and writers and so on. They're supposed to vote. They're supposed to play some role in the way economic and political and cultural life goes on. Now, their consent is crucial. It's one group that has to be deeply indoctrinated. Then there's maybe 80% of the population whose main function is to follow orders and not to think, you know, and not to pay attention to anything. And they're the ones who usually pay the costs.
But I don't think that falling into the liberal mind prison is a sign of moral deficiency or bad critical thinking skills, so much as it's a sign of the effectiveness of the conditioning that the state and capital use. It's very tempting to look at libs doing lib shit and see how naive and embarrassing it is and conclude that they must not be as smart as I am. I believe the good smart things. I must be better than they are. Which, you know, starts to get into some dangerous territory. I don't think you can dismantle authority and hierarchy and also believe in your own superiority. I don't think that leftists are smarter or better than non-leftists, as much as we like to feel like we are sometimes, and as much as we like to act like we are sometimes. Imagine thinking one person is superior to another, when all of us are just insects on this dung heap we call a universe, a fungus, wrought to be cleansed by the gaze of distant eyeballs. Hello and welcome to the Eyeball Zone. Here in the Eyeball Zone, we signal boost small leftist projects, trapping them for all eternity in a prison of their own making. If you're going to talk to liberals about socialism, you're going to hear the same thing over and over. Communism killed 100 million people. Communists killed 200 million people. Communists killed 1 billion people. Communists killed everybody that has ever lived or will ever live. Vicky1999 has you covered. Her video, The Real Death Toll of Communism, and its companion piece, The Real Death Toll of Capitalism, goes into some of the creative math that was used to arrive at all sorts of bogus-ass numbers. Especially the 100 million figure that the Black Book of Communism pushed. That book is bad. A lot of the data and arguments in this video are indispensable when addressing these talking points, and the video makes no apologetics for the actual crimes of so-called socialist governments. Do you have a project you'd like to see featured here in the Eyeball Zone? Send me no more than one email with the word eyeball somewhere in the subject line. Please include pertinent details, like your pronoun, and maybe you will find yourself consumed by eyeballs. Hey, raise your hand if you, at some point, were a liberal. What happened? Did you just get smarter? Did you become a more caring person and immediately reassess your entire worldview? Did you intuit all of your current politics? Did you sit down one day and say to yourself, you know, now that I think about it, labor is entitled to the full value of that which it creates? I doubt it. I think what's more likely is you read something, or you watched something, or you had a conversation with somebody, and that changed your mind. Maybe some of you were already primed for that type of conversion from bad work experiences or having experienced poverty at some point in your life, but at some point, you needed somebody else to walk you through why exactly that was happening to you and what we ought to do about it. Socialists aren't born, we're converted. It is a testament to the power of our ideas that despite centuries of demonization, despite a hostile and pervasive mass media working to undermine us, despite an education system designed from the ground up to produce docile and obedient workers, our ideas remain popular. But liberal ideas, which don't face those obstacles and are instead strengthened by those things, are understandably far more popular. It's a lot easier to get someone to agree with you if they've had a lifetime of conditioning to accept your position. Who are you going to believe? The lifetime of teachers, professors, and news broadcasters saying one thing? The people I will collectively refer to as the TED Talk class? Or the guy on YouTube who rambles about the evils of the bourgeoisie without being able to spell the word bourgeoisie? Who seems more credible? Are you going to risk listening to the communoids when everybody tells you, hey, if you let those guys take control, they're going to starve everybody and we're all going to have to wear ugly gray jumpsuits. They're so dangerous, we can't let you go to the doctor anymore because that might be socialism. We're simply not sure. If you're starving now though, that's your fault. The government can't help people get food. That would be socialism, which causes people to starve. You have to starve to prevent starvation. 100 million people. And all of those socialist countries are so poor. There are no poor non-socialist countries, and it has nothing to do with any third party coming along, blockading, bombing, or sanctioning those countries into oblivion. It's because they don't have freedom, which is a measure of GDP per capita, meaning that Qatar has the most freedom and Burundi has the least, and is therefore the most socialist. We're fighting an uphill battle. We're fighting an uphill battle and we are vastly outnumbered. I don't care what poll you're going to pull out of your pants that shows the people are warming up to the idea of socialism or whatever. Who the fuck knows what people being polled think socialism even is anymore? When everything from single-payer healthcare to food stamps to gender-neutral washrooms to fire departments is being labeled as socialist, it's going to appeal to a wider range of people than those who are on board with revolution. Show me a poll that asks people, hey, should the workers rise up and seize the means of production from the owning class and distribute what they produce freely to all who need it? And I'm going to guess you're going to see a much lower number. I don't say this to discourage you. I think that socialism has definitely gotten more popular in the past 10 years. I think that the stigma of calling oneself socialist has more or less evaporated, thanks in no small part to Bernard Hussein Sanders, who often claims to be a socialist, despite, pretty obviously being a social democrat. Which is still better than the other candidates, don't get me wrong. Probably make that guy president if you can, but really, probably no presidents would be ideal. Let's get rid of presidents. I say this because often lefties on the internet spend a lot of time in lefty spaces marinating their brain in all the memes and jokes and news stories that we like to pass around, and you get a kind of inflated view of how knowledgeable the average person is about socialism. You've probably heard the phrase, "seize the means of production" so many times that it's become a cliche to you. The average person has no idea what that means or why it's a good idea. They're also not likely to be on board when you start explaining. A lot of our ideas are so counter to the status quo that they seem absurd when condensed into sound bites. You say something reasonable that no person with common sense could disagree with, like all cops are bastards, and you get a bunch of people who are like, yo, without police, how are we going to stop people from robbing 7-Eleven? Liberals do this a lot. They take one socialist idea in the abstract and present it as the only change within a capitalist society, point out that that wouldn't work, and then they make fun of you. Haha, you fool. You didn't think about the 7-Elevens, did you? It's frustrating because a lot of the things we believe and a lot of the changes we propose are more holistic than that. A lot of the things which make sense within socialism don't make sense within capitalism, or when viewed from a liberal mindset. Their darling little argument of the tragedy of the commons, whereby shared resources are inevitably hoarded by the greedy few, makes perfect sense when you live in an economy that incentivizes limitless greed. It makes less sense when you have an economic system where limitless greed just gets you kicked out of the dining hall until you learn to stop stealing everyone's breadsticks, Steve. That's not what the conquest of bread means, Steve. It's frustrating, but sometimes you gotta stick with it until one of them just kind of clicks, You're not likely to convince them to read theory until they're already interested in your ideas. And even if you do manage to get them to read theory, they're not going to read it charitably. You can give them an in-depth book and they'll complain it's too complicated and only works in theory. You'll give them a simple book and they'll scoff and say, this is so shallow, how can you base your worldview on this? Your only option, really, is to try and remain calm and not shouty and continue explaining your ideas to them until maybe eventually they start to get it. And this is kind of a do as I say, not as I do type of scenario, because I'm not good at this. I get mad very easily. I'm trying not to, I'm working on it, but that is a limitation of mine. The strategies I see a lot of us use when talking to libs is to either A, soften our message, which is deceptive, and will only convince them of the softer, more liberal position you're pretending to hold, rather than the actual position you're priming them for, or B, mock and ridicule them. Believe me, I've tried this one. It doesn't work. None of this goes for liberal politicians or millionaires or whatever, but more so for your aunt who wears an I'm with her shirt to Whole Foods. Your aunt is not your enemy. We need ants on our side if we want to throw down in a revolution. To destroy liberalism requires the conversion of liberals, because where else the fuck we gonna get converts? Everybody's liberal. Please note, I'm using the word liberal here in the classical sense. It's very broad. Conservatives, by this definition, are also liberals, albeit more hostile ones. Historically, that's what it's usually meant. Chill. Let's make 2020 the year of outreach. And when I say outreach, I do not mean compromise. Compromise, in the face of climate Armageddon, is oblivion. We want outreach. Let's all, myself included, try to be a little more patient when explaining ourselves to little baby liberals. And remember that at some point, we might have been that little baby liberal ourselves, or even worse, and carry that humility forward. Liberals are not our enemies. Liberalism is our enemy. To defeat it, we need to change people's mind. So I see what you're trying to do with your cakes. It's good that I like your commitment. Did you know that John Bolton, the guy you want to testify, did you know that, and I'm putting this in terms that I think you'll like, he is the Dolores Umbridge of American foreign policy. And get this, capital is Voldemort. Thanks for watching another Thought Slime video. Press the like button and the subscribe button and ring that bell and click all the things under the bell, because there's a million steps you got to do just to get my videos to show up in your subscription feed like you would want. If you subscribe to someone, very cool system, YouTube. As a casual reminder, if you don't do those things, Grumbletum will go hungry. You can catch me streaming on twitch.tv/thoughtslime every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you'd like to see more videos from me, you can check out youtube.com/scaredycatstv, where I talk about spooky movies. If you want to give me money, which you are under no obligation to do, you can go to patreon.com/thoughtslime, where I accept donations.